we're actually going to start with the Saints right now. Isn't it convenient that when they're over in London, they're done with practice and all of the media stuff before we come on the air? Oh, so this must be what afternoon drive is like every day. Everything's is coming to an end. Okay, got it. This has been really convenient because Jameis Winston didn't practice again today, and that's been the story of the week over in London. Is Winston yesterday didn't practice. Dennis Allen said, "Hey, we think he'll practice tomorrow and play Sunday." Winston said, "I think I'll practice tomorrow and play on Sunday." He did not practice today, which leads me to think that there's a really good chance that he's not going to play on Sunday. Dennis Allen doesn't meet with the media again until tomorrow. And any questions that were thrown out there today to any of the Saints assistant coaches, I think Pete Carmichael had a media availability today. He said, nope, talk to Dennis about that tomorrow. But we can see now, from what the Saints had to adjust to yesterday and again today, that there's an increasing possibility that he's not going to play. So we found out a little bit more about this injury, a little bit of detail to it. This transverse fracture in his back is something that is very similar to what sidelined Tony Romo late in his career. Now, understand, this is not the injury that ended Romo's career. That was a different back injury. This is something that kept Romo out for one game in the season that he was dealing with it, which was back in 2014. And usually what my understanding of the injury is a little bit of rest will go a long way. Romo missed one game and then ironically got on a plane because Dallas had a game in London the very next week after the game he missed against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Romo played really well in that game. He threw 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. Bryce Petty was a quarterback for Baylor, had an injury similar to this right about the same time, missed one game and came back. So it does seem like, at least in those two cases, there's 2 I could find, that a little bit of rest will do a lot of good. Immediately think, well, after that game in Carolina, might have been a better idea just to send him home. If 1 week's worth of rest was all it took. Now, they don't know that. Every injury is different. Every body is different. But if they knew that, instead of making him get on a plane with a chalky back and go all the way to London, maybe they should have just sent him home. Too late for that now. He's already over there. So it looks like we're going to see there's a pretty good chance we're going to see Andy Dalton. I'm also just blown away at how much support Andy Dalton is getting. Now, I like Andy Dalton as a backup quarterback. I was all in favor of the Saints signing him. I think if you got to, have somebody in there for 4 games, Andy Dalton is completely capable of going 2-2 or maybe even better than that if the schedule lines up for him. But that's where it ends with Andy Dalton for me. The idea that he should replace Winston Sunday, yes. If he's healthy and Winston isn't, and that certainly appears to be the case, then absolutely. Andy Dalton gives you a much better chance to win. But in no way is that an endorsement for me moving forward, with Andy Dalton long term. Andy Dalton was replaced as starter in Cincinnati because he had become ineffective. He spent a year with Dallas and he spent a year with Chicago. His yards per attempt has gone down every year the last 3 years. He started 14 games for Cincinnati in 19. That was the season that led them to acquire the Joe Burrow pick. He started 8 games for Dallas, and he started 9 games for Dallas, and he started 8 games for Chicago. The team's record in those games was 9-19. So we're not talking about his numbers have gone down. His completion percentages have gone down. His interceptions to touchdown ratio has gone in the wrong direction. 38 touchdowns, 31 interceptions over the last 3 years. Basically what you have here is you got Jameis Winston with a weaker arm, okay? Not that that's not the best option for them this Sunday, but that's where you got to stop with Andy Dalton. I think he's a wonderful insurance policy, but they got to try to get Winston back to find out what they got in him. more and more people are saying, hey, listen, this is what you signed up for with Jameis Winston. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to throw into coverages, and now you've got another injury to deal with. I don't think it's going to be long-term. If the Romo injury is an indicator, if the Petty injury is an indicator, a little bit of rest will do this fine. But the Saints offense has got way bigger problems than that. The offensive line is not playing well. Both of your running backs have had major turnovers that cost them dearly in these two games. Your kicker's going through a slump. I mean, you've got other problems on this offense, but I'm all for getting Winston back in the lineup as quickly as they can. Because if Winston isn't the long-term solution, they have to figure out what is. And that's troublesome because they don't have a first-round pick next year. Getting way ahead of ourselves. I would just tell you that it looks like Dalton is going to play this week. And from what we now know a little bit more about this injury, it's something that a little bit of rest will clear up. So Saints and the Vikings on Sunday, 8:30 in the morning.